6 other people are being questioned for alleged terror offences in relation to the attack. 3 men remain in hospital with serious injuries. Police say they accidentally shot one of the men who died during Thursday's attack, as well as another man who survived. The policing watchdog has opened an investigation. Meanwhile, pro-Palestine marches are expected to go ahead in Manchester and London, despite the Prime Minister calling on organisers to reconsider in the aftermath of Thursday's attack. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told GB News it would be a disgrace if the marches are not stopped.
The marches, in my view, should be stopped, and I say that for 2 reasons. Firstly, as a mark of respect to the families of the victims in Manchester and indeed the whole Jewish community in the United Kingdom, who are in grief and shock, as you would expect. The second reason is the police, both in Manchester and the Metropolitan Police in London, have said they don't have the resources to both properly police the protest and also protect the Jewish community and synagogues.
The Conservative Party says it will take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if it wins the next election. Leader Kemi Badenoch confirmed the pledge ahead of the party's conference in Manchester. A review led by former Attorney General Lord Wolfson concluded the treaty has blocked government plans on immigration, climate change and housing policy. The Tories say leaving the ECHR would stop lawfare and allow ministers to put British citizens first. And a man has died and hundreds of thousands of properties were left without power as Storm Amy hits part of the UK and Ireland. A yellow weather warning for strong winds and heavy rain covers the whole of Britain and will remain in force for most of today. The Scottish island of Tiree recorded winds of up to 96 miles per hour last night, and exposed coastal and hilly areas could again see gusts of up to 90 miles per hour today. Disruption is expected on the roads and rail network due to falling trees and flooding, and Belfast International Airport is warning of delays. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and me, Tatiana Sanchez.
Now to our top story now, and Greater Manchester Police have confirmed this morning that both victims killed in the Manchester synagogue terror attack were worshippers.
In an update today, police said both Melvin Kravitz and Adrian Dolby were attending synagogue for Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar.
Now, one community security trust security guard and one security guard remain in hospital with car impact injuries and stab wounds, respectively. 6 people remain in custody over the attack. So let's cross live now to Crumpsall, where GB News reporter Sophie Reaper is there for us. Sophie, lots of updates and corrections coming from Greater Manchester Police this morning as they continue their investigation overnight.
Absolutely, and with a fast-moving, fast-developing story like this, Charlie, as you'll know, of course, developments like this do tend to come in really rather rapidly, and of course those corrections as well. Greater Manchester Police will, of course, as this investigation continues to evolve, they will be able to piece together more information that will shed light on what perhaps was not clear to begin with. Of course, this attack 48 hours ago that it took place now at Heaton Park Synagogue, about 100 metres behind me, behind this police cordon here in Crumpsall. Of course, we got those developments last night that the attacker, the terrorist who carried out that horrific attack, was actually on bail from an alleged rape incident at the time of the attack, and that as he approached the synagogue, onlookers heard him shouting, "This is what they get for killing our children." Now, of course, the speculation about those comments will be rife. It seems a lot of people will think that is a reference to what's taking place in Gaza at the moment. And that, of course, brings us on to the pro-Palestine marches and protests, which are expected to take place later today. Very controversial, of course. Sir Keir Starmer, the Met Police, Greater Manchester Police, all urging those protesters not to carry them out later today in order to show respect to those of the Jewish faith and, of course, the families and loved ones of the 2 men who died and the 3 who are still in hospital receiving treatment for their injuries. But it seems, unfortunately, that they will end up taking place. And I think because of that, tensions here in Manchester and around the UK today are going to be incredibly high.
OK, Sophie Reaper, live in Crumpsall. Thanks so much for that update.
The gathering against the prescription of Palestine Action will still go ahead in central London today in the aftermath of the synagogue terror attack on Thursday.
Now, Defend Our Juries, the group behind this upcoming gathering, said that cancelling the demonstration would let terror win.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has called on the 1,500 people planning to attend to respect the grief of British Jews, adding it's not a time to stoke tension and cause further pain. Well, crossbench peer and former Labour MP Lord Walney joins us now. Lord Walney, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live.
Morning.
This is, of course, a moment of great tension and concern. It feels almost as though the police, the Commissioner of the Met, Sir Mark Rowley, and political leaders almost are a bit impotent in sort of pleading with these demonstrators to stop.
They are, and it will just seem to be absurd to most of the public looking on that the police and the government do not have the power to be able to step in on an entirely common sense basis to say to these protesters who have been going on about this issue week after week, have had demonstration after demonstration, just to say, not this week. The Jewish community are raw, they are grieving, they are under threat, and there is a huge pressure on our police forces who need to be able to try to keep synagogues safe this weekend. So it's utterly irresponsible of the demonstrators to blithely push on, but also the government should have the powers within the Public Order Act to say on occasions like this, no, not this weekend. I've recommended that in my review to the government, which is currently sitting on the desk of ministers, and it would be an appropriate time for them to act on this and change the law now.
And Lord Warney, as these protests are taking place, it's coming as Hamas is now saying they're going to release hostages. There is a peace plan on the table, is there not? You've got Arab nations agreeing to it, Israel, the US, even, the Palestinian Authority agreeing to this proposal to end the war that these protesters are demonstrating against. The only part of it holding out is Hamas. So are you not expecting that perhaps these protesters would turn their fury towards the terrorist organisation instead of the British government and Israel?
It's a really good point. And if this were solely about ending the war and people were seeing things clearly, when people were prepared to see Hamas for the Islamist, terrorist, Jew-hating organisation that they are, then of course all of the pressure would have been on that organisation since the conflict happened. But that isn't what is motivating many of the other protesters, and people also, of course, have to just get a grip of who we are in the United Kingdom, and the fact that this is not our conflict. We are not, the British government doesn't have any power to be able to stop this. This is more about people getting out on the streets to be angry rather than having any chance of making meaningful change in the Middle East.
We're also hearing warnings overnight, Lord Warney, that intelligence officers in Britain are concerned that Islamist groups around the world are sort of trying to radicalise potential lone wolf terrorists with the scenes in Gaza and the West Bank during this Middle East crisis. This attack in Manchester is something that police and security chiefs have been fearing for 2 years now.
Yeah, yes, that's right. I mean, the full motivations and the links of the attacker have not yet been fully analysed, but there is a constant and growing risk of radicalised Islamists in Britain striking at targets like synagogues, trying to kill Jewish people, trying to just kill civilians going about their business, and this is why it is really important that we now hold the government to the promise that they have made to do whatever it takes to keep Jewish people safe in this country, because doing whatever it takes means tackling this Islamist threat, understanding, exposing, and eradicating the links that groups such as the IRGC, the Ayatollah Khamenei's Iranian terrorist outfit have been long cultivating behind the scenes here, the Muslim Brotherhood. We've ducked these questions in mainstream politics for a long time and left it as something just for the security services to get on with, either effectively or not, behind the scenes. We can't do that anymore. And Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, the Labour government, do, I think, understand that, but they have to follow through the pledge that they've made to the Jewish people with sustained action.
Well, in that pledge, you're speaking about this as a former Labour MP, of course. We saw the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, being heckled by Jews in Manchester yesterday as he was addressing them. There is a sense of frustration, isn't there, that while, of course, we don't know, hasn't been confirmed officially the motivation behind this attack or this terrorist's wider links, it does have all the hallmarks of an Islamist attack. And we've yet to hear that language from any ministers. We've yet to hear any ministers even say there are concerns about Islamist radicalisation since the attack on this synagogue. Are you concerned, Lord Walney, that once those links, if they are confirmed, come through, that they won't have the full sort of confidence to go forward and say that?
I think people will be clear about what it was that motivates the attacker. I'd be horrified. I'd be surprised actually if that specific question was ducked by ministers. But I think the wider issue is, do we have the guts as a country to be prepared to talk about the scale of the problem and what we've had within the Labour Party over recent years and spreading, right across civil society, is this sense that talking about Islamist radicalisation is, in quotation marks, Islamophobic and is prejudiced against the faith of Islam and against Muslim people. And in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. The pernicious radical political agenda of Islamism is a world away from the vast majority of British Muslims, but those people who propagate it do hide and try to hide themselves within British Muslim societies, and we have to be bold about calling that out. I think actually Shabana Mahmood, as a proud British Muslim Home Secretary who herself has suffered a great deal of intimidation and targeting from Islamist activists, she is perfectly placed to do this, and I think we need to both hold the government to account in doing it and empower her and support her in being able to take on this battle now.
OK, Lord Walney, yeah, definitely a significant challenge for the Home Secretary, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks.
And of course, yes, the Prime Minister did say that protesters or gatherers today should be respectful, but to what extent do you think at home that they should have more power, the government, in perhaps stopping these types of protests and gatherings from going ahead?
Yeah, please do get in touch, gbnews.com/your say.
Still to come, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has announced that her party will leave the ECHR if they are elected at the next general election. But is the pledge enough to to rescue her party from plummeting polls.
But next, we'll go through today's top stories, including university students being taught how to concentrate as they're struggling to cope with reading long novels. We will tell you all about that next after the break.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
There's an interesting story, Charlie, in the Daily Mail. Two-year report that claims racism in the UK countryside is getting worse, with abuse normalised and tolerated. What do you think of this academic research?
Rubbish. Well, it's a load of old bunk. Yes, yeah. 2 years, as you say. 2 years to interview how many people? 115. It took 2 years.
Very scientific.
And this is where, people often ask about, what you do when you go to university, or the tuition fees that people have been paying. University of Leicester, where this report was undertaken, have funded this 2-year holiday spree, by the sounds of things, and cobbled something together at the end. 115 people, that's nobody. But they've asked the question about, do you feel that the countryside is effectively exclusive in any kind of particular way?
Well, let me read this out. The report also claimed that non-verbal cues, such as incessant staring and unfriendly body language, made individuals from ethnic minority backgrounds feel unwelcome.
And no Wellington boots.
That's probably what they were staring at, yes.
Walking shoes. I'm a man of a certain vintage. I've never owned a pair of walking shoes.
I haven't got walking shoes. I've got Wellington boots.
I've never owned a pair of walking shoes. I've got a pair of wellies.
Well, there you go.
A pair of trainers.
So we'd both be OK in the countryside.
It does not impede on your appreciation of the countryside having walking shoes or not.
Well, it depends how far you have to walk.
It's pathetic. Haven't these universities got better things to do?
Well, you would have thought so. But the idea that, the countryside is now all of a sudden racist, or the rural communities in our great countryside is all of a sudden exclusive, as I say, it's ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me, Tatiana Sanchez, and Charlie Peters. And to look through the top stories of today, we are delighted to be joined by our panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and political commentator, Andy Twelves.
Hi, you two. Let's start with the top story, shall we? Of course, this appalling situation in Manchester and those dramatic scenes yesterday with the Deputy Prime Minister, Andy, being heckled and booed after he came to address British Jews gathering in Crumpsall. Obviously, this is a very tense and difficult time, but there's no getting away from the fact that a lot of British Jews feel as though the government has failed to support them sufficiently since coming into power last year. Sure, but I think the issue is with David Lammy here, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he went, people would have booed and said it's disgraceful that he went. But if he didn't go, people go, it's disgraceful that he didn't go and he's not supporting the Jewish community. So I do feel a bit sorry for him because, what could he really do? I think, obviously, I don't know who was protesting or who was shouting, but I think probably the families of those killed and injured probably wouldn't have liked that to kick off at the vigil. I think it's probably something for another day. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I think it is a bit disrespectful. Well, I don't know about that, but what was disrespectful in my view, I mean, he's rode back on this now, hasn't he, Lara, is that last week, or earlier this week, really, David Lammy was suggesting that Nigel Farage was linked to Hitler Youth. Well, here we have marauding terror attacks targeting British Jews, and that's the real division in the country, is it not? Not legitimate conversations about immigration policy.
I mean, this is a devastating story, and it's very, very sad. And I agree. I think David Lammy was right to go to the vigil. But yeah, he's made some very thoughtless comments over the last few weeks, and I think that does speak to his lack of intelligence as a politician. I mean, to accuse Nigel Farage, a man looking at a vote share of about 30% at the moment, of being linked to Hitler Youth, to make a series of comments that imply that Reform voters are racist is divisive and unhelpful and harmful in a time of enormous division in this country.
Andy, enormous division in this country. Do you think that David Lammy's sort of feeling a great sense of regret over his comments earlier in the week?
I think he probably is, because he rode back later that afternoon. I think he said something on the BBC, and then by the ITV News at 6, he retracted it and changed it. But I think we can't accuse just David Lammy of causing division in this country. I think Nigel Farage has had a big part to play in it.
So is this issue? I mean, we're hearing a split between unity and division. It seems to me the real split is between civilization and barbarism. I actually would like more division from people who go around spreading Islamist ideology or who are nervous about confronting this issue. This country needs actually a bit more division in some of these issues to separate ourselves from those who might push that idea. Do you think Labour perhaps got the split wrong here?
No, I don't think they did. I don't think you can blame the Labour Party for this attack. I think it's just a terrorist attack. These things happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, David Lammy's comments and Keir Starmer's comments at the Labour Party conference about Nigel Farage, I think are a separate political issue to this terrorist attack. I think one is a legitimate kind of bit of political rhetoric, but the other is a devastating tragedy. And I think, it is a bit, not dangerous, but a bit questionable to kind of conflate the two, to be honest.
Should we move on to the next story now? This is a story about money, money, money. So it's the science of spending, or how to buy more joy with your cash. Can money buy happiness?
Absolutely. We were just speaking to Dougie out there in the green room, and he had a great line, which I'm going to steal now, which was, if you spend your money on drink, then you can't remember you spent it, which is a fantastic way to do it.
Dougie BT.
I think it's, absolutely.
That's his sort of 10 a.m. chat, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. It's great chat on a Saturday morning. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, money can definitely buy happiness up to a point. I think it's sort of a quite tired line that it doesn't. I think most people in this country would be much happier if they were a bit richer. I suspect a lot of the trade-offs that come with enormous amounts of wealth, like being very, very time poor, for example, limit that happiness. But in this study, she just gave people a lot of money. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if someone gave me a share of £1.5 million as happened, I'd definitely be a bit happier.
Yes, so Dr. Elizabeth Dunn saying that if money doesn't make you happy, then you probably aren't spending it right. Do you have a wish list of what you do with that 1.5 million, Lauren?
Gosh. Oh, that's hard to say. I've always wanted to go to Japan. I think I'd go there.
I think you want to,
I think you want to buy an experience. That's been my experience of money. Or just, go down the pub and buy a lot of rounds.
I never regret spending money on food.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you a big foodie?
I'm a foodie, yeah. Colombian Italian, we love our food.
Well, there's another thing that people are proposing you could spend your money on. Heroin and crack cocaine should be legalised, the leader of the Green Party has said, Andy. He said that Labour are the handmaidens of reforms politics, saying that obviously they are moving away from the Liberals' side. He's also said that there could be an alternative for left-wing voters disillusioned by Labour. Is legalising heroin and crack cocaine the way to do it?
I don't think it is. I actually had quite a lot of time for Sapolansky since he got elected. I quite like his kind of brand of eco-populism, and I think the way he's kind of rebranded the Greens to not be kind of some weird hippie kind of smoking weed somewhere to this kind of eco-populist doing heroin. I think it's actually quite refreshing to see someone kind of on.
Hang on, you said they've moved away from being weird hippies smoking weed, and then this is a story about them calling about legal.
I know. I'm genuinely.
I'm not sure this works out.
I'm genuinely baffled at where this policy's come from, because it doesn't track to what he was saying. Do you know what I mean? He was talking about taking the big companies that are absolutely taking the mick out of the country on procurement to task, bringing bills down, bringing wages up, just like that really great leftist chat. And then he's come out with this, and it's just, what are you doing, man? Do you know what I mean?
The war on drugs has failed, has it not? This is the Green Party's perspective. We've got to tackle it in a different way.
I mean, this is what the left do every year, right? People don't have serious conversations about energy bills, about foreign policy, about tax for immigration, and then they get up and they just do sixth form politics. And they've been trying to legalise drugs, like in the Greens, in the Lib Dems, and parts of Labour for ages. It won't work. It's a stupid idea. People will suffer as a consequence, but it also won't happen because no one's going to vote Green. So It's just a bit silly.
Next topic, quite an interesting one for me, actually, because I did an undergrad in English literature.
Okay, back to be exposed.
I didn't get any of this. So universities are apparently teaching literature students how to cope with long novels. So they've been forced to teach English students how to concentrate long enough to read lengthy novels. Well, I would have loved that.
To be fair, some novels are pretty long. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think this story is a bit sad, to be honest. I think the education system, particularly for those starting university, a lot of those kids will have known most of their secondary school life during COVID with your online schools. They weren't actually provided with the education they deserved or needed. So I do actually feel a bit sorry for them, and I think they do deserve the support from someone, from somewhere. So I think it is a bit peak, to be honest.
It's a crisis in the capacity to concentrate. Laura Brown, this is the TikTok generation who are entertained for 3 seconds and then move on, being faced with a hard text. It all falls apart.
I mean, I read English too, and as I was leaving university, the first students coming out of the COVID years were arriving. And what was very clear is we shut down the schools and we put the generation in front of a laptop for, 8 hours a day with no supervision, and hoped they did some work and hoped they actually read some books. And surprise, surprise, they didn't. I mean, I don't think I would have if I did online school for 2 years. It was a huge betrayal of the generation. And I imagine that this story has come out of that problem. I suspect there's other issues. We haven't really tasked people with very difficult texts at GCSE and A-level. I think some people are reading English when they shouldn't be because they're not sure what else to do. But I would say I blame closing the schools here for a lot of this.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? I think back to your point about our attention span becoming shorter and shorter. Just me the other day, I decided not to watch a Netflix movie because I wanted to have something more accessible. I wanted to be able to scroll rather than sit down and watch a movie. I find myself looking at my phone when I'm watching Netflix.
The second screen thing is what they call it in the industry, because they know that they want to have something that's so simple to follow as a storyline while you're watching it on TV that you can look at your phone while watching it at the same time.
Or that you've watched before, so you don't have to pay too much.
That's sort of mortifying.
The kind of films that I watch now are on TikTok, when the top bit is TikTok and the bottom bit is like Subway Surfers or something like that. And I watch all my movies through these bizarre clips now because I just can't sit down.
Well, there's now an app that does this, apparently. People can't read research papers anymore, so they've made an app that will read out the paper in AI while showing you a Subway Surfer or Minecraft Parker thing.
What kind of world are we living in?
Yes, indeed. Right, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Andy. Still to come, has your autumn getaway been disrupted by airport drone chaos? More on that security threat shortly.
But first, your latest news headlines with Bethany.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. President Donald Trump is calling on Israel to stop bombing Gaza after Hamas agreed to release all Israeli hostages and return the bodies of those who've died. Police say the man who carried out the attack on a synagogue in Manchester, killing 2 people, was on police bail for an alleged rape, and that he may have been influenced by extreme Islamist ideology. Ahead of the Conservative conference in Manchester, Kemi Badenoch says she will take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if her party wins the next election. And a man has died and hundreds of thousands of properties were left without power as Storm Amy brings strong winds and heavy rain to the UK and Ireland. That's the headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Bethany, thank you. Still to come, flights are set to resume at Munich Airport this morning after drone sightings over the airport closed the runways last night for the second time this week. Has your winter sun getaway been disrupted by drone chaos?
But next, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has announced that her party will leave the ECHR if they are elected at the next general election. But is the pledge enough to rescue her party from plummeting polls? This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel. Roll in. Hey, you all right?
Good morning. Storm Amy will be moving away, but it's going to be a slower process today. So there is still the potential for damaging gusts of wind, and there'll be further heavy rain to come as well. Many Met Office warnings remain in place. An amber warning across the north of Scotland. Many other wind and rain warnings across the UK. Gusty conditions, a band of rain slipping southwards, followed by plenty of showers. More heavy rain in the northwest of Scotland, where there's very strong winds, I say, are likely to continue for much of the day. The potential for further significant disruption. Some good spells of sunshine across the south, but it will be bright and blustery and cool. You'll noticeably chillier than recent days, with temperatures struggling to get into the teens for some and feeling colder with those winds, which continue to blow across northern Scotland. You can see a swirling around Storm Amy, but still dangerous gusts possible well into the afternoon, and further heavy rain coming into northern Scotland as well. Something a bit drier across the west coast of Scotland, but showers will be zipping through here, down through the Irish Sea into northwest England, North Wales, pretty much throughout the day. A bit of shelter across the southeast, not too many showers here through this evening. A decent chance of some calmer conditions, some clearer skies, and the winds will ease a little through the night. Still very windy though across northern Scotland. There's that Storm Amy slowly starting to pull away from Shetland through the early hours, but still providing, as I say, some very strong winds. Temperatures mostly dipping down to 9 or 10 degrees Celsius as we start Sunday. Sunday's still a breezy day, but for many a bright and breezy day. Quite a bit of sunshine around on Sunday across eastern England and southern England. Further west, you'll have to share the sunshine with some showers feeding into western Scotland, Wales, northwest England, and maybe more persistent rain returning to the northwest later on, but not as heavy as it has been. And those winds through the course of tomorrow won't be anything like as strong as today, so it'll probably feel a touch warmer.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. It's 10:36, and the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, has announced that the Tories would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if they win the next election.
Making the announcement ahead of the Conservative Party conference starting tomorrow, Ms Badenoch says she has not come to this decision lightly, but says it's clear that it's necessary to protect our borders, our veterans and our citizens.
Now, Lord Wolfson, a leading KC, has drawn up the formal legal advice to the Tory leader advising on the decision. Well, joining us now is immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. Good morning, Ivan. Thanks very much for joining us. Well, it's a bit of news for your trade, perhaps, because there's more pressure on immigration law, there's more pressure on human rights legislation. First Reform, now the Conservatives. Do you think it's inevitable that Britain will leave the ECHR?
No, it's not inevitable. First of all, you'll need to repeal the Human Rights Act. That will require a majority or a coalition of parties. I mean, look, it's easy to say we're going to do this, that and the other, leave the ECHR when you're not in power. The Conservatives will need a majority or do deals with other parties to do that. On top of that, the European Convention is tied up with the Good Friday Agreement. So it's not as straightforward as you think. Look, what's offending people about the Convention is Article 8, the right to family and private life. And that's used to challenge removals from the UK when somebody has a family, has a British wife or child. Now, you don't have to throw the whole convention out. I think we could look at amending the convention, and the government have done it already with regard to private life. They've amended the immigration rules where you need to be in the UK 20 years for Article 8 to apply. Now, they've done that without repealing the convention or the Human Rights Act. So there are ways we can change the convention so that we can prevent people from using that as a grounds for preventing removal.
And Ivan, do you think that the Labour government, obviously it's headed up by a human rights lawyer who has praised this act very strongly throughout his career, now facing the need to amend it to prevent more of this pressure to leave the ECHR, because it's not just, obviously, the right to family life, there's also protestations against torture being used in quite remarkable circumstances. The news recently of an Afghan man who said he couldn't go back because he'd be tortured, returning privately for holidays. Clearly, the system is being abused, and Labour will need to urgently change this system to prevent this pressure to get rid of it all entirely.
I don't know about you, but for me, if somebody says to me, don't send me back to my country because I'm going to be tortured, and there's evidence to prove that, on the balance of probabilities, what that person is saying is true, I wouldn't want to send that person back. Would you? So it's not a question of the law being wrong. The issues are the government don't have processes to stop people abusing the law. That is the problem. I mean, do we really want to be a society that wants to send someone back to a country where they may be killed or tortured? I certainly wouldn't, and I think most decent British people would agree with me on that.
Yeah, but the point is, Ivan, that actually when you do poll people on this, they recognise that a lot of people saying they will be tortured actually won't. And by the strict definition of that rule, anyone who comes here from a tyrannical regime would immediately be able to stay here forever. It would basically create an open borders possibility for anyone from a dangerous or backwards regime. And of course, what we're seeing is that a lot of people are choosing to return to these countries on holiday. It's a joke to say that these people are facing a threat to torture in all cases, and this law is being used as a protection far too broadly.
Well, first of all, if somebody is doing that, and there are people who do that, I'm not so naive as to accept that this doesn't happen. It does happen. This is the problem with the Home Office. It is dysfunctional. When you've got evidence that someone's done that, immediately that person's asylum should be suspended. And then there should be investigation. And if it's found they've gone back for holiday, their asylum grant, or even indefinite leave to remain grant, or even nationality, if they're a British citizen, that should be revoked. We're not, we can't have people abusing the system. But what you mustn't do is throw the baby out with the bathwater when the fundamental protection rights are right. It's bipartisan. It's right not to be tortured, right not to be killed, the right to marry. Your right as a journalist is protected by the convention, freedom of expression. So there's some really good parts of the convention. Most of it is absolutely right. Some of it's being abused, and we should look to amend those parts, Article 8 in particular. And I've been calling for this for a while, that, we should look at that. And what the people do is use what's called a composite right. So the rights of my wife and my child and me. Well, perhaps we should not be looking at that. We should just be looking at the individual. And that's what gets them over the line for Article 8. And we should look at amending that.
OK, and Ivan, obviously, speaking about these potential changes to the convention, that's going to take a big political push. Do you think that Sir Keir Starmer has the confidence of his party to get that over the line? Do you think that with all this momentum against immigration law and protections, that he might finally be able to make those changes? Because he'll have to do a big battle with the left of his party and, of course, sort of the immigration law and the human rights law establishment as well.
Well, you'll be well aware that it was British lawyers, left-leaning lawyers, I'd argue, that drafted that convention.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the point. So it's hard for him to go against them, having belonged to that group previously, as it were.
I mean, I can't speak for Keir Starmer, but knowing his background, and if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't be able to look at you in the face and say these are not fundamental rights that need to be protected. So I think it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle that he may not want to have with his left-leaning side of his party, because, again, it'll be a push for him to be removed. Yeah. I had actually had a bet with somebody from another party, one of the leaders, that Starmer will be out by Christmas. And I want to say if I win on that bet.
Just one more question, Ivan. The Prime Minister labelled Reform UK's indefinite leave to remain policy, in the sense of scrapping it, racist and immoral. Is that fair?
No, it's not. I know Nigel Farage. Look, I'm a human rights lawyer, and I can tell you categorically that man is not a racist. In fact, I'm not Nigel Farage supporter, but he never attacks other leaders. He never has done. He's a class act on that point. But what he's done, I think Starmer's done, is given him an open goal. because it's about common sense politics. It's not about racism.
OK, immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Still to come, flights are set to resume at Munich airport this morning after drone sightings over the airport closed the runways last night. For the second time this week, has your autumn getaway been disrupted by drone chaos?
But first, let's get a forecast for those hotspots in your holiday weather.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Some very heavy rain across Croatia this weekend and some more heavy downpours likely in southern Italy as well. Generally fine with sunny spells, a bit of a breeze blowing across the Canaries. Sunshine too for the Algarve. Small chance of a shower if you're heading to Barcelona. Certainly some heavy showers over southern Italy, and there's bright colours there suggesting some very heavy rain for Croatia. That should be clearing away as we head into the new working week. So Dubrovnik turning sunnier again for Tuesday. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, flights are set to resume at Munich airport this morning after drone sightings over the airport closed the runways last night for the second time this week.
Thousands of passengers have been impacted by delays and cancelled flights as the city geared up to celebrate the final weekend of Oktoberfest.
Well, more broadly, it's the latest in a string of European airspaces, including Poland, Norway and Denmark, impacted by drone sightings, with some alleging that Russia is behind the disruption.
Well, will the latest disruption impact your chance of some holiday sun? Joining us now is the Senior Consulting Fellow at Chatham House, Keir Giles. Keir, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. Lots of European leaders are blaming Russia. Are they behind this?
Well, there's a different category of incidents that have been affecting airspace across Europe. Some of them are definitely Russia, because we see what's coming from Russia. Others, so far, have not been positively attributed to Russia, but they fit with this general pattern of Russian activity. So when these European leaders are saying probably Russia, they're not doing that because there has been the full investigation and attribution. In fact, one of the problems they're facing is that they are woefully deficient in means to do that, it turns out, but instead because it fits within these years-long patterns of behavior by Russia, looking to sow disruption and all of the campaigns of assassination, arson and sabotage that we have confidently asserted that Russia is behind because it has been investigated and prosecuted over the preceding years. So the possibility that this is local idiots enjoying the drama as opposed to part of a sustained campaign by Russia is still there, but it's slim.
And Keir, they've been speaking about Russian incursions into airspace before some of the assessment on these drone sightings and possible Russian links. Now, do you think that Russia has stepped up its sort of hybrid warfare campaign on European nations in recent weeks and months?
That's certainly what a lot of people have been saying, looking at the spike in behavior, particularly with the overt incursions into airspace by, for example, fighter aircraft or a mass of drones heading into Poland as part of a raid on Ukraine. But in fact, this is just the latest increase in the level of intensity of what Russia has been directing across Europe for several years. It's got a lot of attention, particularly because it is doing dramatic things. It's things that everybody notices. It's things that affect people's flights, as you mentioned in the intro to this piece. So it has a direct impact on people's lives, and it's things that people can easily understand. If you shut down an airport, everybody knows what that means. But overall, it's just part of a slow, steady escalation that we've been seeing over multiple years.
And in this slow, steady escalation, what is the response from Britain and other European nations? Because sometimes, Keir, when we hear about these hybrid warfare attacks, this asymmetric warfare and sabotage and all the rest of it, you occasionally hear people say, and you might hear this in the pub or when you're with your friends, they'll say, oh, but, you know, I reckon we're doing sort of the same thing behind Russian lines, and that sort of Western intelligence agencies are engaging in similar activity. Is that really the case?
Well, we would like to hope and trust that Western intelligence agencies are fighting back. But of course, that's something we can't know because by design, if this is happening, we're not supposed to know about it. But the impact on societies in the West is something that's been steadily ticking up. And I don't know about the pubs that you go to, but when I hear conversations about this, it is more about what are our governments going to do to protect us from this? Because the impact on people's lives is getting more and more as time goes on. And part of the problem is that Russia has found ways, whether it is the Russians that are actually doing this or instigating other people to do it, found ways in which Europe is intensely vulnerable. It's probably come as a huge surprise to Russia, as it has to us, that airports are such soft targets. Now, I went and looked up after the closure of Copenhagen Airport. The first time I wrote about the potential for drones, for UAVs to be used in this manner to shut down civilian airports, and it was 2015. This has been a problem that European capitals have known about for a decade, and yet still it seems they haven't invested in means of identifying what's going on, attributing who's doing it, and most of all, interdicting it so it doesn't cause this massive disruption.
Keir, one of the warnings of these incidents is that they could provide inspiration to non-state actors, to terrorist organisations seeking inspiration on other capabilities that they could deploy to disrupt our way of life. Do you think that's a concern in this case, that as states like Russia perhaps have new kit and equipment to cause disruption in our lives, that maybe even Islamist groups could be inspired by these activities?
Well, certainly it should always be a concern, because once you have demonstrated that these targets are so vulnerable, it doesn't take a great deal of expertise and capital and resources to actually exploit that. And the attacks that we've seen against these airports are relatively unsophisticated, just like the incursion of drones into Polish airspace was just a tiny fraction of what Ukraine faces every night. And yet, again, Western countries seem to have shown themselves completely unprepared. So anybody else that wants to take a pop at an airport will definitely be inspired by this, while European governments scramble to get their act together to do something about it.
OK, Keir Giles, Senior Consulting Fellow at Chatham House. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And lots of you have been getting in touch on gbnews.com/your say. Tatiana, we've heard from John F. saying, leaving the ECHR will do no good. It's too late unless we deport the millions here already. And that won't happen. I mean, that's a very strong view on this. And I think it's part of the concern that we've heard Reform put forward with their indefinite leave to remain policy, which a smaller version of which came forward with Labour, that we've had this massive wave of legal migration, and people are thinking, is that going to be with us forever now? That's a massive concern as well.
Labour, of course, bringing out their list of requirements if you do want to come and settle in the UK, and yeah, lots of interesting topics there.
Well, we've got lots more coming up on Saturday Morning Live today. All the latest from Manchester, and we'll be looking at the Met Police's plan for the demonstration later today. Very controversial, lots of strong views on that. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us here on Saturday Morning Live.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Storm Amy brought some damaging winds last night, and it will continue to bring some disruptive winds in parts of the UK today, and there'll also be some heavy rain in places. Looking at the pressure chart, we can see just how closely packed the isobars are on the southern side of Amy, and it will remain very windy through the rest of Saturday and even into Sunday too. Weather warnings are in place, with the strongest winds expected to be across northern parts of Scotland today, and amber wind warning remaining in place here. There'll also be some rain or showers, a more defined band of rain pushing southwards across England and Wales for a time. Then a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers elsewhere. Some of those on the heavy side, perhaps even thundery in the west, and certainly cooler than yesterday, temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year. As we move into this evening, the winds will continue to stay pretty strong across northern parts of Scotland, so further interruptions to power and damaging gusts of wind potentially possible. Gusts of up to 85 miles per hour in the most exposed spots in northern Scotland. As we move further south, there will be some rain and still some flooding impacts potentially in parts of Scotland and even Northern Ireland, but generally speaking, a mixture of sunny intervals and showers to end the day, and the winds will be gradually easing down. So after a blustery day in England and Wales too, the wind warnings will elapse and the winds will gradually ease as we go through the early hours of Sunday morning. But it will stay quite blustery. There'll be a few showers in places, some longer spells of rain across the very far northeast of Scotland, and here it will stay particularly windy with the risk of gales continuing. Temperatures overnight, well, they're not going to fall too far away because of the wind, so staying in the high single figures for many of us. Now, Sunday does promise to be a brighter day for many. It'll also be quite a bit less windy too. There will still be a few showers pushing in from the west and some longer spells of rain across western Scotland through the afternoon, but some southern and eastern areas will stay mostly dry, and with the winds being a bit lighter, it should feel a little bit milder tomorrow than on Saturday, so highs of 16, perhaps even 17 in some places, a little bit warmer.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 4th of October, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live.
Our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, and before I do, please.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Mourners vent their fury at the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy during a vigil following the Manchester synagogue terror attack.
Well, today, protesters supporting proscribed terror organisation Palestine Action are facing backlash, with the PM urging people to give the Jewish community time to grieve.
Sophie Reaper's on the ground in Crumpsall as Greater Manchester Police continue their investigation into Jihad al-Shami.
Here in Manchester, the mood is a sombre yet angry one. People have questions and they want answers.
Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that.
Well, US President Donald Trump has told Israel to stop bombing Gaza as Hamas finally agrees to release all hostages, dead or alive.
Don't do it. I'd say show some patience. And look, reform is essentially, they've got good slogans, I'll give them that, but these slogans are written on the back of a fag packet in a pub.
And Kemi Badenoch announces she'll take Britain out of the ECHR if the Tories win the next election. But will the real story at conference tomorrow be defections to Reform UK, something Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp strongly urged against this morning?
And Storm Amy continues to bring chaos to Britain. Let us know how you've been impacted this morning.
The biggest stories, the boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Tatiana Sanchez.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here. It's remarkable, isn't it, Tatiana, seeing that man pleading with the crowd in Crumpsall to stop booing David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, as he stands up to address them. Now, the government keeps saying they want to spread unity, not division. They've accused Reform of being plastic patriots, and they're really putting forward this message that there's now a new dividing line in politics between those who believe in a sort of cohesive Britain and those who believe in division. But I think a lot of people, as you heard from that noise in that crowd in Manchester, there's a new dividing line coming from the people against barbarism, against terrorism, and also against any forces that might contribute to it. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about those issues over the coming weeks. But of course, we'd love to hear what you think as well.
So send us your views and post us your comments as well by visiting the gbnews.com/your say.
But before we do anything else, let's go to Bethany Elsey with all your latest news headlines.
Thank you both. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. Donald Trump is calling on Israel to stop bombing Gaza after Hamas agreed to release all Israeli hostages and return the bodies of those who've died. The US president says Hamas is ready for lasting peace after the group agreed to negotiate his 20-point peace plan, including handing over administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body of independent technocrats. The announcement came after Trump warned he would unleash hell if Hamas didn't respond to his plan by Sunday.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home.
Greater Manchester police say the man who carried out the attack on a synagogue in which 2 people were killed was on police bail for an alleged rape. The force also says Jihad al-Shami may have been influenced by extreme Islamist ideology. The 35-year-old British citizen of Syrian descent was shot dead by armed officers. 6 other people are being questioned for alleged terror offences in relation to the attack. 3 men remain in hospital with serious injuries, and the policing watchdog has opened an investigation after officers accidentally shot one of the men who died during Thursday's attack, as well as another man who survived. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian marches are expected to go ahead in Manchester and London. That's despite the Prime Minister calling on organisers to reconsider in the aftermath of the attack. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp told GB News it would be a disgrace if the marches are not stopped.
The marches, in my view, should be stopped, and I say that for 2 reasons. Firstly, as a mark of respect to the families of the victims in Manchester and indeed the whole Jewish community in the United Kingdom who are in grief and shock, as you would expect. The second reason is the police, both in Manchester and the Metropolitan Police in London, have said they don't have the resources to both properly police the protest and also protect the Jewish community and synagogues at the same time.
The Conservative Party says it will take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if it wins the next election. Party leader Kemi Badenoch confirmed the pledge ahead of the party's conference in Manchester. A review led by former Attorney General Lord Wolfson concluded the treaty has blocked government plans on immigration, climate change and housing policy. The Tories say leaving would stop lawfare and allow ministers to put British citizens first. And a man has died and hundreds of thousands of properties were left without power last night as Storm Amy hit parts of the UK and Ireland. A yellow weather warning for strong winds and heavy rain covers the whole of Britain and will remain in force for most of today. Exposed coastal and hilly areas could see winds of up to 90 miles an hour. Disruption is expected on the roads and rail network due to falling trees and flooding, and Belfast International Airport is warning of delays. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Bethany, thank you very much and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and me, Tatiana Sanchez.
Now to our top story, and Greater Manchester Police have confirmed this morning that both victims killed in the Manchester terror attack were worshippers at the synagogue.
In an update today, police said Melvin Kravitz and Adrian Dalby were attending synagogue for Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar.
Now, one CST security guard and another security guard remain in hospital with car impact injuries and stab wounds, and 6 people remain in custody over the attack. Well, let's cross live now to Crumpsall, speak to our reporter Sophie Reaper, who's there for us. Sophie, last night dramatic scenes as the Deputy Prime Minister was facing heckles and calls that he had blood on his hands as he tried to address the Jewish community in Manchester.
Indeed, that was the case. Of course, we've known since the attack happened that members of the Jewish faith have had questions for the government, many of them saying they were shocked by it, but they weren't surprised. In fact, many of them saying they've been expecting something of this nature to happen since the October attacks 2 years ago. Now, of course, David Lammy took to the stage and was introduced, which was immediately met by boos, but as you say, by heckles, people shouting, "You are guilty, you have allowed Jew hatred in Manchester on the streets, you are all guilty, we do not want you here speaking today, shame on you." And that was the word that was repeated time and time again last night at the vigil, was shame. And I think that's something, the mood shared by many in this community, many people angry, particularly about the protests which took place on Thursday evening after the attack and that are scheduled to take place again this evening, both in Manchester and London. The Met Police, Sir Keir Starmer, Greater Manchester Police, many different bodies all calling for those protests not to take place out of respect for the Jewish faith and for the loved ones of those who died in that attack on Thursday. But unfortunately, it does seem as though those protests this evening will still go ahead. Of course, we heard other lines last night from Greater Manchester Police. We heard that Jihad al-Shami, the attacker, was on bail for an alleged rape incident at the time of the attack. We also heard from counter-terrorism that he may well have been influenced by what they called extreme Islamist ideology. Those are the words there of the head of counter-terrorism, Lawrence Taylor. He also confirms that the suspicious device that was attached to al-Shami's torso was not real. He said it was fake. So lots of new developments coming in overnight. And of course, you mentioned there the update from Greater Manchester Police this morning that the two men killed were both worshippers. It was believed perhaps yesterday that one of the men was a security guard. That is not the case. Both men who died were simply worshippers. I say simply, not simply. They were worshippers who bravely were behind the doors inside the synagogue, trying to prevent that attacker from getting inside, doing everything they could to prevent him from getting inside, to try and save the lives of their fellow brothers and fellow worshippers inside that synagogue on such an important day in the Jewish calendar.
Sophie Reaper live in Crumpsall for us. Thank you very much for that update today. And Hamas have agreed to release all its remaining hostages and negotiate a peace deal in order to reach a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
Well, this has come after the President of the United States, Donald Trump, warned Hamas they would face all hell if they did not agree to his plan to end the conflict.
I thank the countries that helped me put this together: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents.
Well, some breaking news this morning. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has welcomed Hamas's response and has called for an immediate ceasefire. Well, with us now is defence and security analyst Simon Diggins. Simon, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. It appears then we might get one step closer to the end of this war. The Arab nations had agreed to this plan, the US and Israel. It was just Hamas holding out. We're nearly there.
Charlie, good morning to you. Yes, absolutely. This does look like potentially one of the better opportunities for peace than we've seen for a while. There are still, though, some sticking points there, not least of which that Hamas has got to hand over its weapons and disarm. At the moment, they are saying they're not prepared to do that, but they may well be getting closer to that, being persuaded that's the right thing to do. It is, of course, significant that President Abbas has actually agreed to this as well, because one of the big issues is what will be the authority, who will be in charge of Gaza once there is a ceasefire and indeed there is some kind of stabilisation force. Who will be the Palestinian authorities in charge from that as well? Up until now, there's been an element of division there. So there are some things that are very positive about this, but there's still a few sticking areas which we need to be wary of.
Of course, Simon, not involved in this deal is Iran, one of the key funders of Hamas. And if we want to see Hamas hand over their weapons, de-arm and sort of disestablish itself as a terrorist organisation, that can only really be achieved if the people that enable that organisation also take a step back.
Yeah, I think at the moment, you're not wrong at all, Charlie, but I think at the moment, Iran itself is on the back foot. The joint Israeli and American efforts against their nuclear weapons has made them think very, very hard. Not least, and they've also had the destruction of Hezbollah and pressure put on the other proxies, the Houthis in the Yemen. But you are right. This is a major issue for them. Whether people can persuade the Iranians to stay clear of this and actually find another way of dealing with their neighbours is problematic. Qatar stands out as a sort of central point in all this. Qatar has this extraordinary position where it has not only got the political office of Hamas there, it's also got the largest US Air Force base in the Middle East based in there as well. So it sits right in the centre, and of course physically, geographically, it's also very close to Iran as well, and has managed to keep doors and windows and every other way into communication open so people can talk and operate from there. So I've not the slightest doubt there are conversations running behind the scenes, so to speak, saying, don't mess this up. This is an opportunity for everybody to move forward and get something towards a major peace settlement, at least in Gaza, if not the whole of the Middle East.
And of course, Simon, that will have a significant impact in Britain as well. We know, unfortunately, that events occurring in West Asia have a significant impact on the security situation in Britain, with so many people, in a sense, potentially being radicalised by events there. We've heard warnings from intelligence chiefs overnight being briefed in the newspapers today, saying that the security services have feared an attack like the one we've seen 2 days ago on the Manchester synagogue since October the 7th, because so many British Muslims have a risk of being radicalised by activities in Gaza. British security chiefs, MI5, they'll be desperate for this war to end to prevent that pathway of radicalisation from expanding.
No, I think that's right. But I would also just note that the Islamic radicalisation is not just about the Gaza conflict itself. And so clearly, if you like, the immediate cause that the people are adhering to will start to disappear. But the issue of Islamic radicalisation and how it's affected the Muslim community in this country, I think will continue to exist. It has its own independence view, which is not just simply tied to Israel. Though Israel and the relationship of Israel to the Palestinians is, if you like, is the immediate cause at the moment that they're adhering to. But Islamic radicalisation continues to exist through the internet, through people like ISIS Khorasan and the other ISIS group, who will continue to spread their hateful propaganda. And sadly, some individuals may be affected by that.
And so, of course, I mean, they are very effective propaganda teams, aren't they? Both Hamas and also ISIS. They often fake footage to promote suffering. They often will twist the situation on the ground very cynically in order to promote their cause, to perhaps radicalise young people in the West to carry out attacks on their behalf. Just last week, ISIS were urging more attacks against Jews, Christians and their allies. As you say, it's not just the Gaza conflict that will be promoting radicalism, but it's clear that this whole conflict, the Israeli response, their attempt to sort of destroy this terrorist organisation, has been a significant recruiting drive.
No, I think that's right, because it gives something concrete for people to hang their hat on and say, you know, they can almost claim then to disassociate themselves from the origins of Islamic radicalism, which we saw in other iterations with Al Qaeda, with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and various other groupings. So, as I say, this has a long and very sad history. But you're right, there is an immediate cause at the moment, which is bringing not just people who maybe are Muslim and therefore more susceptible to Islamist ideology, but Palestine itself and the challenge of how we get two peoples with different histories, different cultures, to live and be peaceful together to them, has also attracted other people as well. The elements of the kind of so-called progressive left, who I don't think are progressive at all, but elements of them have adhered to that cause and see that it's something they can do. And so the radicalisation, the poisoning of people's minds has indubitably been enhanced, exacerbated by what's going on in there. But whether that will continue, and then what do we do with the sort of the deeper roots of Islamist ideology, will continue as a major threat to us, I think, sadly, for years to come.
OK, Defence and Security Analyst Simon Diggins, thanks very much for your time this morning. And still to come, the Conservative Party conference set to get underway tomorrow, but will there be more defections to reform over the course of the weekend?
But next, more of today's top stories, including an Italian priest who has been deemed too fit for priesthood. We'll tell you all about that next. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. But before today's top stories, there's still plenty of time to get your entry into our biggest Great British giveaway to date. It's your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash and a brand new 4-berth motorhome.
Correct.
Here's all the details that you'll need for a chance to make it all yours.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people, comes with integrated bathroom and kitchen areas, has plenty of storage and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, taking the total prize value of this Great British giveaway over a whopping £104,000. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Blinds close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, there you go. Those are all the details you need to win that 4-berth motorhome. Now, to look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined by commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and the political commentator, Andy Twelves. Where should we start?
Top story.
We start with top story.
Absolutely.
UK leaving the ECHR if the Tories win the next election.
Andy, your views?
Oh, I'm sure Kemi's got lots of views on policies and things if the Tories win the next election. I don't think anyone really cares. I think the next election will be between the Labour Party and the Reform Party. I think Kemi's just trying to somehow copy the Reform UK Party by just announcing their policies but with a slightly different tinge. I don't think anyone really cares. Do you know what I mean? Like Jenrick called for it, Farage called for it. I think she's just a bit behind on the kind of right-wing immigration line, to be honest. I think who cares?
He's got a point, hasn't he, Lara? Because, you know, this whole strategy of staying silent for ages, not saying a word on anything to regain trust, and now sort of playing catch-up with Reform and other right-wing groups, or indeed Robert Jenrick, has put her sort of at a strange place now.
Yeah, I think the embarrassing thing for Kemi is that last year Rob made the whole leadership contest. This is for Leave or Remain, and I'm for Leave. And he cast her as the Remain candidate, and she stuck to that line and wrote op-eds saying, you know, ECHR isn't enough, it's not going to work. And now, a year later, Reform have obviously got the ECHR policy. Labour want to disapply significant aspects of it in domestic law, and finally Kemi is coming around on the ECHR and sort of saying, I would even... You know, you're right, Andy. I don't know if people are going to care that much now that so many other parties have offered to do something.
Yeah, I think particularly with, Jenrick perpetually in the kind of wings, waiting to make his move. He's got a lot of support within the membership and that kind of online right. I think she's kind of just bailing out the water, but more is just sinking in. I just don't think she knows what she's doing, to be honest. Why would you wait this long? Because I'm sure what she says won't be impressive at all. It'll be some poorly performed speech, a poorly written policy paper. It's not going to be this revolutionary take on the ECHR, inevitably, because nothing about Kemi is revolutionary. It's just awful. So I just don't know why she's waited to present something so mediocre.
Well, we'll see, obviously, the detail of it. We've got a top KC in Lord Wolfson putting this together. And this is all being leaked from the sort of shadow cabinet meetings. This was trailed earlier in the week, hasn't it, Laura? I mean, at this stage, do you think that there is anything Kemi Badenoch can do to sort of reset her leadership? There are some briefings in the iPaper today saying that a mob around Robert Jenrick is preparing to challenge her, but we've heard some Tory sources saying that they don't understand where that story is coming from. One saying it sounds like utter rubbish. If anyone is clowning around, they're not acting in Robert Jenrick's name.
I think a few things. Leaving the ECHR is complicated, and it is possible, although we've not seen the speech, that Kemi has got details that reform have not worked out yet. But, will people care about details? That's not, a part of what people tend to care about. On Rob, Rob's team have been briefing for about a year now that when Kemi's November the 2nd year of protection runs out, people will start putting letters in. I think what we're seeing in the eye is just an extension of that briefing. It's not, going to allow us to work out if we're near the 40-letter threshold that is required to get rid of her. I don't think they're going to manage that in November. I think it will take another blow to Kemi in May at the locals. So she could turn it around by doing well at those locals, but the current direction of travel does not make it look like that's going to happen.
And also, why would Jenrick want to come in now and own those locals in May? Because, he'd have, about 6 months if he came in from November. That's probably enough time to put together a decent campaign. Why would you want to own that? Because it's going to be a disaster for the Tories. Yeah. Why would you want to get involved?
Let's move back to the situation in Manchester, of course. We've seen the Deputy PM, David Lammy, being pilloried by that crowd yesterday, saying he had blood on his hands, Andy. That's obviously really stern criticism. We were speaking to a security expert earlier this hour who was saying that even if the war in Gaza wraps up, we've still got a big problem with dealing Islamist radicalisation at the moment. It's clear there are so many problems for Labour to tackle here. But do you get the sense, as I do, that they're a bit shy on this issue? They seem a bit nervous about tackling Islamism and calling it what it is. Do you think that's because of the perhaps the 4 million votes that they want? There's a bit of a hesitation there?
I don't think they are shy on it. I think a lot of the defunding of our public services over the last 20 years has resulted in this. We need a properly funded prevent scheme. We need properly funded counter-terrorism. I think you can't blame the Labour Party for that. They've only been in power a year. Terrorist attacks have always happened, whether it was the IRA or now an Islamist threat. They're always going to happen. I think the Labour Party just needs to properly fund those public services and let them do their jobs. I don't think David Lammy or any Tory politician or any Labour politician has blood on their hands over this. I think the only people that have blood on their hands is the guy that actually did it and whoever groomed him into doing it, to be honest.
Laura, your view?
David Lammy does not have blood in his hands. Whatever you think of him as a politician, he is not responsible for this horrific attack. That being said, Labour are pursuing policies that are going to make tackling Islamist extremism very difficult. If we define Islamophobia to include claiming that it's been spread by the sword, talking about grooming gangs, we are going to see a situation where Prevent cannot tackle Islamism, and that will be a big problem.
Let's bring you something else, because the Foreign Office Minister, Hamish Falconer, he's confirmed last night, Andy, that a second cohort of students from Gaza with scholarships at British universities arrived in the UK today to begin their studies. He says they could play a vital role as future leaders in post-war Gaza. And we've heard so much about how radicalised the youth are in Gaza, that in their education system, run, of course, by Hamas, they're taught to hate Jews and the West. Is bringing students from Gaza to Britain a smart move, especially at this time when we're so swamped by mass immigration and our authorities are clearly struggling to deal with radicalisation? This strikes me as a bit of a risk to British security, bringing these students over.
Well, I'm sure the FCDO have done whatever necessary vetting they need to. I think there are two key points here where I would actually back Hamish, to be honest. I think, A, whilst Britain's actively contributing to the refugee crisis, contributing through military support, part support, whatever, we have a responsibility to deal with the fall out of that, whether that's taking refugees or providing aid or whatever. On the second point, Gaza, it shouldn't be Hamas run. Under the new Palestinian Authority, it won't be Hamas run. I think...
As it is right now, man.
Yeah, this
is what people have grown up with. They've grown up with being
educated
by Hamas.
And if we come here and we give them the training that they need through, actually fair systems, proper systems of training, and send them back, that is really key for the future leadership of Gaza.
Like,
it is.
It doesn't seem to me as though it's Britain's responsibility to de-radicalise Gazan students, take that risk to British security, and then return them to the West Bank and Gaza.
I mean, this is very idealistic. I think it won't work. The thing that really concerns me is that Yvette Cooper has been very clear that she's expediting visas for these students, but also for their families.
Yeah.
That is from a part of the world where we know that 37% of people support Hamas, minimum. The odds, therefore, of bringing somebody in who, believes that the Jews control the world and believes they're the enemies of the Muslim people is very, very high. The risk of terrorism is very, very high. I don't trust the FCDO to do that vetting. I'm really nervous about the scheme. I think there are other ways to support people in Gaza.
Should we change gears now to another topic?
Big change.
Just ever so slightly. And a rather attractive Italian priest influencer has been told to stop flexing his muscles on social media. He says he's doing it to encourage people to get into the Catholic Church and get involved in the Catholic Church. He's being told to stop doing it.
I mean,
there's the screens now.
There he is.
Smart chap.
Me and Lara had a look at this in the green room on his Instagram, and this might just be me as a slightly overweight, not very good-looking guy talking, but he's actually not that ripped. I'm not being funny. He's a good-looking guy, don't get me wrong. He's got great skin and nice hair. But, like, if I was looking for a PT, I wouldn't go to him.
But as a Catholic priest, as far as priests go, as the average there, Laura, he's doing a good job, no?
Yeah, I mean, I reckon by the standard of Catholic priest, he's doing quite well, and maybe this is how the Catholic Church should be trying to attract young people. The part that made me laugh the most is he's got a Instagram post from a few months back saying, praying is not enough. You need to be saintly, but also healthy. Supplements help me do that with a 20% off code and a big sponsorship. Okay. So it does feel like, it's a new direction for a priest to be going in. I can see why they're sanctioned.
The gospel according to discount codes is a new mentality there. All right, well, Lara, Andy, thank you for your views and everything from radical Islam to posing priests. There's lots more coming up on the show today, but first, let's get your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom. President Donald Trump is calling on Israel to stop bombing Gaza after Hamas agreed to release all Israeli hostages and return the bodies of those who've died. Police say the man who carried out the attack on a synagogue in Manchester, killing 2 people, was on police bail for an alleged rape and that he may have been influenced by extreme Islamist ideology. Ahead of the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, Kemi Badenoch says she will take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if she wins the next election. And a man has died and hundreds of thousands of properties were left without power as Storm Amy brings strong winds and heavy rain to the UK and Ireland. You're up to date. More for you in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Bethany, thank you. Still to come, a gathering against the proscription of Palestine Action will still go ahead in central London today in the aftermath of the synagogue terror attack on Thursday. The Prime Minister has said it's not a time to stoke tension and cause further pain.
But next,
I'd say don't do it. I'd say show some patience. And look, reform is essentially, they've got good slogans, I'll give them that, but these slogans are written on the back of a fag packet in a pub.
Well, Kemi Badenoch announces she will take Britain out of the ECHR if the Conservative Party win the next election. But will the real story at their conference be defections to Reform UK? Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp strongly warning against those this morning.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Storm Amy will be moving away, but it's going to be a slower process today. So there is still the potential for damaging gusts of wind, and there'll be further heavy rain to come as well. Many Met Office warnings remain in place. An amber warning across the north of Scotland. Many other wind and rain warnings across the UK. Gusty conditions, a band of rain slipping southwards, followed by plenty of showers. More heavy rain in the northwest of Scotland, where there's very strong winds, I say, are likely to continue for much of the day. The potential for further significant disruption. Some good spells of sunshine across the south, but it will be bright and blustery and cool. You'll noticeably chillier than recent days, with temperatures struggling to get into the teens for some and feeling colder with those winds, which continue to blow across northern Scotland. You can see a swirling around Storm Amy, but still dangerous gusts possible well into the afternoon, and further heavy rain coming into northern Scotland as well. Something a bit drier across the west coast of Scotland, but showers will be zipping through here, down through the Irish Sea into northwest England, North Wales, pretty much throughout the day. A bit of shelter across the southeast, not too many showers here through this evening. A decent chance of some calmer conditions, some clearer skies, and the winds will ease a little through the night. Still very windy though across northern Scotland. There's that Storm Amy slowly starting to pull away from Shetland through the early hours, but still providing, as I say, some very strong winds. Temperatures mostly dipping down to 9 or 10 degrees Celsius as we start Sunday. Sunday's still a breezy day, but for many a bright and breezy day. Quite a bit of sunshine around on Sunday across eastern England and southern England. Further west, you'll have to share the sunshine with some showers feeding into western Scotland, Wales, northwest England, and maybe more persistent rain returning to the northwest later on, but not as heavy as it has been. And those winds through the course of tomorrow won't be anything like as strong as today, so it'll probably feel a touch warmer.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, has announced that the Tories would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights if they win the next election.
Making the announcement ahead of the Conservative Party conference starting tomorrow, Ms Badenoch says she has not come to this decision lightly, but says it's clear that it's necessary to protect our borders, our veterans and our citizens.
Well, as conference looms, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp responded to reports this morning of more defections to Reform UK.
Well, I would say they're wrong. I'd say don't do it. I'd say show some patience. Look, Reform is essentially, they've got good slogans, I'll give them that, but these slogans are written on the back of a fag packet in a pub. They don't stand up to any serious scrutiny. They don't have any detail behind them. We saw that announcement, was it a week or so ago, where Nigel Farage fell apart within like a few minutes of questioning because he hadn't got his facts straight on European Union citizens. Reform is essentially a one-man party. There is only room for Nigel Farage in that party, and any Conservatives who join it will pretty soon discover that.
Well, joining us now in the studio is political reporter at Politics Home, Harriet Simmons. Harriet, are the Tories at risk of any upcoming defections?
I think it's really interesting that Philp this morning used it as an opportunity to really attack Reform. It's clearly something that they're worried about. I think after Danny Kruger's defection back last month, the party has been on high alert. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that another one could be well timed this sort of weekend and into next week, cause a bit of disruption there. You know, I think Kemi's struggled recently, to put it mildly, over the last 12 months. You know, she's consistently polled below 20%, you know, as low as 14, and the party has under her leadership. So I think it is something that we're worried about, clearly with this announcement on the ECHR and obviously last week as well. their announcement to scrap the Climate Change Act. They're trying to sort of shift closer to reform to sort of stem the tide of defections going over there.
But also, Harriet, I mean, it's not just defections to reform they're worried about. It's also challenges to Kemi Badenoch's leadership. We're seeing reports in the iPaper this morning that there's a group gathering around Robert Jenrick. A source close to Robert Jenrick has told GB News this morning that they don't buy this story, to put it mildly, and they don't see this. And I've also heard a Tory party source saying that this story has come to harm Robert Jenrick. They want to make him seem as a sort of a plotter. What's your read on this situation?
I mean, I've heard similar. A Tory MP told me when the sort of story broke that it was a load of rubbish. But you never know with these things. I think my sense of it is, Rob is trying to sort of do the best he can as Shadow Justice Secretary, and also, not try and look like he's on manoeuvres. It's been a sort of criticism, over the last year. But, we have seen, almost, I think, 20 now former or sitting Tory MPs defecting to reform. So it's a real worry. But we must keep in mind that it's not until November 2nd that the party can actually, challenge Kemi Badenoch's leadership. And my sense from Robert Jenrick's team is that they wouldn't be looking to move at all that quickly. And actually local elections next year is a more sort of realistic time, shall we say, for something like this to happen.
More broadly speaking, what does Kemi, in your view, need to do to win back more support? And to what extent do you think that it's perhaps too late for her to do that?
I think she's clearly sort of made her mark in shifting the party further to the right, with this announcement on the ECHR, and also with her announcement last week on scrapping the Climate Change Act. But there are divisions in the party over whether this is the right move or not. I know of a group of MPs that I've spoken to that actually don't think that the party should be talking about immigration at all, because they've been in power for the last 14 years and, failed to tackle the issue at all. So
that was the strategy that they went with when Kemi came in, and that clearly hasn't worked out. You speak about the divisions within the party. We've heard from Darren on gbnews.com/you're saying there's no chance they'll do this because if they were in power, they would just argue amongst themselves. There is a big split in the Conservative Party on this. The more sort of left-wing side of the party, very much supportive of the ECHR. While there's been a bit of a culling, has there not, of those sorts of MPs, particularly helped by their devastation at the last election, that is still quite a core contingent within the Tories.
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely a clear split between those that, if there were a future leadership election, would support Robert Jenrick, and those that would perhaps prefer someone like James Cleverly. I think with Danny Kruger's defection, that was a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of the people further to the right of the party. He was seen as, someone that was a real Conservative thinker. He was integral to Rob Jenrick's last campaign when he was running for leader against Kemi Badenoch. And so I think there definitely is some urgency to act, but it's not entirely clear that the party is united in quite which direction to go.
And, there's criticism of Nigel Farage from Chris Philp, really.
Yes.
I was sort of surprised. Scathing. I was really surprised by it, because we've seen quite a few Tory MPs on X launching onto sort of attacks on reform. But at the same time, most of their voters are quite keen on reform. Loads of them have left the party to go and join reform. It's quite a strange strategy, don't you think, to go so hard after the man they're trying to ape, in a sense, and catch up with, while at the same time, pushing for similar policies?
This is the thing. I think my sense of it is the party haven't really known how to deal with reform. There's been no sort of clear sort of strategy for their reform attack, and, we've not really seen too much of it, because I think there's been a lot of fear about, alienating voters and, going too far. But, with Chris Philp's comments this morning, I think it's perhaps a real sign of what we can expect at conference. And from some of the speeches there, I think it will be very sort of focused on trying to convince their members that, they should stick with the Conservative project and not, flee to reform.
OK, Harriet Simmons, reporter at Politics Home, thank you so much for your time this morning. It will be very interesting, won't it, Tatiana, to look forward to this conference. I'm not sure
as you heard from Harriet, that they really have a leg to stand on immigration. So
we'll find out from tomorrow, won't we? Still to come. We'll look ahead to the protest in support of Palestine action set to get underway very shortly. And what is the Metropolitan Policing plan for today?
But first, if you are in search of some holiday sun, I'm sure you are with the storm, here is the forecast for some of the top European travel destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Some very heavy rain across Croatia this weekend and some more heavy downpours likely in southern Italy as well. Generally fine with sunny spells, a bit of a breeze blowing across the Canaries. Sunshine too for the Algarve. Small chance of a shower if you're heading to Barcelona. Certainly some heavy showers over southern Italy, and there's bright colours there suggesting some very heavy rain for Croatia. That should be clearing away as we head into the new working week. So Dubrovnik turning sunnier again for Tuesday. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A day for us today, Penny.
Yeah.
With losing our friend, Mr. John Stapleton, totally unexpectedly. I mean, of course, we knew he was ill.
Yes,
but
we didn't know as
we
well.
didn't know he was about to die.
Well, no. When he came in, we came in to the studio, and the three of us kind of were reunited.
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago, exactly. And yesterday, the lovely thing was that I had so many texts from people who you'd recognise as well from GMTV days, other people as well. Everybody saying what a gent he was and how kind and, you know, from my point of view, the reason he stayed a friend, you know, obviously, you know, you have these, you call them screen husbands, screen wives, but the reason he stayed a friend was because he was genuinely funny. He made me laugh a lot, all the time. And in fact, I just recently did a little podcast with him. We were talking about things that he hated and everything, and he was talking about he hated people driving around with cars with their windows open and really loud music.
Yeah.
And he was just going, you know, he said, I just shout at them, can you turn it up a bit? There's somebody in Australia who can't quite hear the words. So you never expect it, you never want it. The people you love, you want to live forever. That's it.
That's very well said, yeah. I obviously was very friendly. He was, when we say a gentleman, he was gentle. He was a gentle soul. And then he became very nasty. It was very difficult to like and get on with. It was just you know, when Manchester United started to decline in terms of superiority, and he became so... He became so arrogant.
No, did he really?
He was unbearable.
He so didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and a gathering against the proscription of Palestine action will still go ahead in central London today in the aftermath of the synagogue terror attack on Thursday.
Defend Our Juries, the group behind the gathering, said cancelling the demonstration would let terror win.
Now, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has called on the 1,500 people planning to attend to respect the grief of British Jews, adding it's not a time to stoke tension and cause further pain.
Well, the former Police and Crime Commissioner Festus Akinbusoye joins us in the studio today. Festus, thank you so much for coming in this morning. Look, Defend Our Juries, the group putting on this demonstration, they will say that it's free speech. They're going to continue to go on with this no matter what's going on. And, they believe, and I mean, a lot of people don't share this view, that a genocide is going on. So it doesn't matter what's going on in Britain, they're always going to go out and protest that. What's your view?
Well, at a time when we have families, British families, who are grieving the loss of loved ones, at a time when police officers up and down the length and breadth of this country are trying to investigate very complex terrorist attack on British soil, which takes a significant amount of police resources, at a time when actually, believe it or not, Hamas have now come out saying that they are going to somewhat support the proposal by President Trump. This is not the right time to have this protest. I think it is possible to be able to agitate for and protest and raise concerns about an issue that's happening in a different country, while at the same time showing empathy for your fellow British citizen. And I think doing that right now, having this protest now, is the wrong thing to do.
And of course, also, we're hearing from the Prime Minister and also from the Chief of the Met, Sir Mark Rowley, saying that this is an issue about resources. It's sort of an embarrassing thing for the Prime Minister to admit that they actually, we can't do this. We want to dedicate resources elsewhere. You'd expect the largest police force in the country to be able to stand up and deal with this stuff.
On the one hand, so you have the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, who said that, look, we don't think this is going to be a good idea. It's going to have about 1,000 people protesting, if not more, in London. We need to focus our resources on investigation. The Greater Manchester Chief Constable, Sir Stephen Watson, he has also come out asking for people not to cancel the protesting, but to delay it. But what we have to remember as well is that in other countries, about 15 European countries at the moment, have banned this protest, if you're not aware of this. So, and some of these countries include France, Germany, Sweden, quite a left liberal country for the most part, Spain, Italy. They've banned this protest because they are concerned that it could stoke anti-Semitic views.
We'll check on that. I'm not sure that
it is true.
Pro-Palestinian demonstrations banned on the continent.
They have been banned in some European countries, correct?
I mean, technically,
I'm not saying that we should ban it.
Of course,
here,
but technically, this protest is banned because it's proscribed terrorist organisation.
Exactly right.
If they support it, then they'll get in trouble from that.
Festus, what is your message to Defend Our Juries?
What I'll ask them to do is this: at this particular time, please think about what the families of those who have been killed are going through. This is not about curtailing your human rights and your right to protest and to congregate. Of course not. This is a free country and everyone should have the right to protest. But there has to be a time and a place for everything. Now is not the time to do this. A week's time, fine. But also listen to the police chiefs and the families of those who have died. Take their consideration into thought and reconsider and not go ahead with this protest this weekend.
Festus, I mean, the protest that we saw 2 nights ago, right after this terror attack, before we even had much information about it, all we knew is that Jews had been killed in a direct attack on a synagogue on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar.
Yeah.
We still saw protests going ahead. I saw at one protest in Edinburgh a sign saying, go and punch a Zionist, for example. People are mixing up this idea, it's OK to criticise Zionism, not just Judaism, etc., and that they're separate. But it's clear now that these protests increasingly have anti-Semitic elements within them, and some of the language being bandied about. You just wouldn't see that being used elsewhere, would you?
This is why I said that, you should do some fact-checking on this. It has been banned in some European countries. But for years now, many of our Jewish citizens have been saying to us that they are afraid. They feel they're being targeted. And we have almost, as it were, allowed people to get away in the name of free speech to say things that actually causes a lot of alarm and distress to our fellow British citizens in this country. And I'm not sure the way that we're going ahead with things is sustainable. And I think we need to really revisit how we allow free speech to just go unfettered in Britain at the moment. I don't think it's sustainable.
Is that it? I think we've run out of time, have we? Have we got time for one more question?
Well, if not, Festus, look, this problem that we're facing right now, this is a widespread agenda
against Jewish hate, right? This is what's going on. This is Jewish hate in so many of these protests. Do you have confidence that the Met and the security services can get a grip of this issue as a country after the attack on the synagogue?
The Met have to enforce the laws that are in place. Parliament has a responsibility to provide very clear guidance and legislation for the police, and they have to follow that rule.
OK.
Festus, thank you very much for joining us today to talk about that very sensitive topic at the moment. And thank you very much for you at home for watching Saturday Morning Live.
Well, don't go anywhere. Dawn Neesom's up next with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
Thank you very much. All you need to know about today's show is that we'll be live at that march protest in London and finding out why people are there and what they want. Don't miss it.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Storm Amy brought some damaging winds last night, and it will continue to bring some disruptive winds in parts of the UK today, and there'll also be some heavy rain in places. Looking at the pressure chart, we can see just how closely packed the isobars are on the southern side of Amy, and it will remain very windy through the rest of Saturday and even into Sunday too. Weather warnings are in place, with the strongest winds expected to be across northern parts of Scotland today, and amber wind warning remaining in place here. There'll also be some rain or showers, a more defined band of rain pushing southwards across England and Wales for a time. Then a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers elsewhere. Some of those on the heavy side, perhaps even thundery in the west, and certainly cooler than yesterday, temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year. As we move into this evening, the winds will continue to stay pretty strong across northern parts of Scotland, so further interruptions to